of Biting the Bullet podcast. We are joined today with crowdfunded government, and we're super stoked to have you on.
Hashtag not a militia. Hashtag Khloe Kardashian of podcasts.
Setting fire to the blunt of
allowable opinion. Hey, we both got it. I lagged out there for a second. Sorry.
Yeah, it's harder when we're not together.
Yeah. But yeah, man, we're super stoked to have you on. We're going to go over some things, jump right into it. I'm joined as always with my hosts, Jared and Typo. The basis of this episode is going to be about the, how's a crowd-funded military look like? Like, what is that?
Man, that's a good question.
Hit him with the hard ones.
Welcome to the shit show.
Yeah, welcome to the shit show. So we can jump right into it. Anybody got some like opening remarks, anything they want to ask or start us off with, or anything like that?
No, I think we're basically here to dive into what would a voluntarily funded military. So you being able to like every year or whenever you want, just be like, yeah, I'll give them like $200, $300.
Yeah, instead of the $2,000 per household, what do you actually want to give?
Yeah,
very dangerous question to ask, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So my name's Theodore. I'm the executive director, crowdfunded government. You can find me at crowdfundedgovernment.com, on Twitter at crowdfundedgov, and I advocate for eliminating taxation. No more gun in your face. My belief is that if all government programs were voluntarily crowdfunded, we truly have a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And that definitely includes the military, for sure.
Dude, that's an awesome tagline right there. Like,
I love it.
That whole thing. That was dope.
Dude, we have somebody that's like real and shit, man. This is insane.
No, actually, here's the crazy part. You guys are the legit ones at Childerberg 1, which I'm really sad you guys couldn't be at. Hopefully we can catch you at Dose, right?
Oh, we're going to Dose, yeah.
All right, cool. Because I was asked twice in two separate conversations where I was kind of going over, yeah, I've been on this podcast. Both were like, dude, what about Biting the Bullet? Have you heard that? I'm like, oh, I love it, man. I love that one. I got to get on there.
Dude, people were talking about us at Childerberg. I'm so flustered.
Because the Liberty Movement, everybody's listening to everybody, and you guys are offering something that nobody else isn't, which is here's some military guys who have seen past the facade of what the government is. You experienced it. You now know about waste and inefficiency. You guys have such a cool angle on everything.
Yeah, that's kind of what we went to. That was like our niche. And I feel like it hasn't really been exploited. And I think I'm glad I'm so stoked with the success that we've had so far. It's insane. I think we just topped like 1,500 downloads on, Podbean. And we finally got on like all the other big podcast things. And it's been fun. But I mean, I've listened to you on a couple podcasts so far. And
yeah, I heard you on Fagcast first. That was awesome.
Yeah, those guys are absolutely nuts. They have caught lightning in a bottle. Every episode they put is just like better than the last. It's nuts.
I love it.
Yeah, they're funny.
So I can tell you guys for sure, when you show up to Dose, they're going to roll out the red carpet. You guys are instant celebrities in the community.
Oh, let's
go!
I'm such a chub right now. I'm so excited.
I know. Can Childerberg Dose be like next week? Like that'd be dope.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing. We want to start one or something similar to it. More West Coast-ish.
We're just gonna go shoot shit.
Yeah, we're gonna go out and start shooting, and because I mean, there's a crap ton of people in the Liberty Movement that I've met that they're all for gun rights and things like that, but most of them don't even own a gun or a handgun or a rifle or never shot before in their life, but they're like, I know it's something that I need to do, and I think that would be really cool. Just have everybody out there and like being able to actually teach people to, hey, this is what a firearm is, this is how it works, and all those Liberty Movement guys and everybody just being able to go out and shoot in the desert somewhere.
That's an awesome idea.
Yeah, we'll have to start working on that. But I mean, we'll get back to the regular scheduled broadcast. So what is with the crowdfunded stuff, or especially in the military? Would it look more like what people consider militias then at that point, or do you think it would be a wide scale type deal.
Would there still be one military, or would it be like full privatization where you like have competing militias that compete against basically Minutemen that compete against one another, and then you donate? Or are you talking more like we still have the federal military, but from what I understood from your Fadcast interview was basically you would just turn all the funding of that's still federal military, but you would make it completely voluntary?
Yeah, let's talk about the different steps, I think, that would lead to ultimately what you guys are talking about here. So the most basic premise that I have for a crowdfunded government would be everything is exactly the same programs, the same military, everything, the same government, same politicians. You just have the option to voluntarily fund it. And probably maybe baby steps are always going to be the local programs, but let's just jump ahead to the sexy federal programs like the military. I think the first thing you start out with is just voluntarily funding the military, the whole Department of Defense, everything that's happening with the VA benefits as large as you can. You don't I don't think if you get more specific than that, maybe right up front, you might scare people away. So that's a more simple introduction. But as you could see, that's a pretty simple progression there. Is what happens if you allow people to voluntarily fund the government? They're going to say, I want to specifically fund this or that. So then you can start to get into a discussion of the different programs that the military offers, because there's offensive programs, there's defensive programs, there's VA benefits. And as you start to get to a more micro level, things get a lot more interesting, because you might want to give to the defensive programs, but you might not be too excited about this offensive effort or that offensive effort. So I think that's where I'd start the discussion, is just if you broke it down by the different programs. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
And along with that is the localization idea, because you did start to get into a discussion of militias, which does start to get a little bit far from my theoretical models, but it's right in line with what I like to talk about, which is so many of the problems that we have with government are that the programs are administered at too high of a level. So if you manage a program at the federal level, it's going to be fraught with waste and abuse, because everybody's just identified by a social security number. And
you're cutting out a little bit, man.
Oh, okay, you guys got me?
Yeah, a second.
I think we lost
sorry.
Luke.
Yeah, I heard somebody drop out. You want to roll through here?
Yeah, hang on a second. How are we doing? Can everybody hear me good? Typo, Luke.
Yeah, I think Luke got disconnected.
Luke got disconnected?
Yeah, it says biting the bullet left, and he's on the biting the bullet fucking thing.
All right, we'll just go on ahead. He'll join back in.
Okay, I'll keep rolling. So the whole idea of localization is that most programs, if done at a more local level, are going to be more efficient and have less waste. Anything being done federal should be done state. Anything state should be done local. Anything that you can. And if you take that to the way that we run the military, there are definitely things that the military does that must be done overseas on a federal level, as they're currently laid out. But it does open a really good discussion in regards to any programs that might be happening stateside, or any sorts of training that happen, because you guys can speak to this, that so much of what the military does, even though you're focusing on foreign conflicts, so much of it is a local and state effort, in the sense that it doesn't need to happen overseas. It can happen here. The training, the preparation, the development of weapons, those sorts of things are things that happen at a very local level.
Well, yeah, like we don't outsource our training or anything. Like basically, like out of my military career, I spent 7 months overseas, but then the rest of the 4 fucking years, I'm just sitting around training and stuff. I think it goes into a really big discussion of like when you start breaking down the funding of what things would be funded over what things. Whereas, like, you look at things like the funding of arms and weapons to other countries that's currently done on the public funding level, and like things like, you know, the war in Yemen or the war in Afghanistan and Iraq and things like that, and how those would be funded compared to, say, donate to fund the, you know, veterans that are fucked up from the wars, or veterans that come back home with scars and shit like that. And things like training and equipment and such of that.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff where I feel like whenever people talk about that they support the military, if you really get down to the brass tacks in regards to what people actually believe in, that's the kind of stuff that they really start talking about. Like they want a well-equipped military, they want a well-trained military, they want a military that takes care of those who are no longer in the military. But a lot of people, even very gung-ho military supporters, always have their questions and always have their concerns about some of these theaters of war that are going on and some of these offensive efforts. And that's what I really want to see, which is how many people actually support some of these efforts that go on and potential efforts. I mean, you guys saw what the feeling was on Twitter about what happened in Iran recently. There were some people who were jumping as fast as they could. All right, time for war with Iran. But so many people were not jazzed about that and were very afraid of that. And I love the idea that instead of just counting on, all right, your 100% of your military budget is going to go towards whatever crazy thing happens next, that you would then get to choose if you wanted to give to these theaters or these potential theaters as they start ramping up.
Like you would truly vote with your dollar, like 100%. Like that's what it would be.
Yeah, voting with your dollar is something that I think is key. Essentially, I envision a free market of what are currently your tax dollars. Now, you still have your votes for politicians, and there's sort of a balancing act. You would have people, you still have your typical elections, you have your politicians, but the politicians would only have the power to propose programs. They wouldn't have the power to force you to pay for something. And at that point, you're going to have politicians that do nothing but propose unpopular programs that don't get funded. Well, they're going to get sent out because the people that they're representing are going to be furious that they keep proposing these stupid programs that don't get funded. And then take your dollar. I mean, the greatest private property is that's your money. For somebody, property rights is a big discussion of money. I mean, I can't think of, I guess I could have an argument about land versus money, but it's just so essential that you choose what you do with your money.
Well, yeah, and then how many people honestly own land anymore? You know, like the majority of Americans don't own lands.
Nobody owns land in America. It's called property tax.
That's such a messed up concept that, I've searched high and low to see whether allodial title is still possible, and that's the type of property that you own outright without the need to continually pay property taxes, and it's virtually non-existent in this country. There is no land ownership because of property taxes, and that's the most insidious thing, is that you can't even keep your land unless you pay rent to somebody. So is anybody really an owner?
Yeah, no, you wouldn't be, because you're continuously paying on something that you're supposed to outright own and not pay anything more for.
Paying that damn protection money.
Which also brings me into one of my other favorite topics, which you guys enjoyed discussing, which are the local municipal tyrants.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And they are always out there doing all sorts of revenue generating activities. And there's a great opportunity for voluntarily funding those tyrants, because the questions would be, what program are you operating? For example, there are some forces, especially in larger cities, where they have nothing but a drug task force. And these people are, this program is simply, you will find the drugs and you will violently take the people and the drugs out of that situation. And what I love about a crowdfunded government would be, how much money do you want to give to the local municipal tyrants to go try to obtain these drugs and people involved in that process? So that's a question I want to ask people. How much do you want to give to that?
Like, that's what's funny, is that some people would give money to that. Like, I know plenty of hard right-wing fanatical Republicans that'll fucking instantly give money into the drug war, but the amount of money that they're gonna get is not gonna allow them to conduct the drug war.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you're not going to be
hobbled.
You're not going to be able to buy fucking armored vehicles, dude.
Well, yeah, they literally take out you take out the legs from the program. Like it would be so hard for it to actually do anything.
Yeah, and then that becomes the big fear that's always posed to me, as though it bothers me. Well, what if some programs don't get enough funding? Well, you guys imagine why I'm not worried?
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds like people didn't want to waste their money on that program, man. I don't.
Yeah. Well, it's like
right to me.
It's even like with the wars we're in today. Like this whole crowdfunding idea, I really like it because a lot of people don't even fully understand exactly like what we're doing over there and how we're conducting these wars. So like if just giving people the option to support these wars or not, like I think most Americans would choose not to support the wars.
Can you imagine a crowdfunded government budget sheet that's trying to convince you to donate to a program to allow Saudi Arabia to buy like 500 pounds fucking
Yeah.
Like what the fuck? No.
And it would have to force the government to be transparent too. Like they would have to show you what you're giving your money to so they could get the money.
Yeah, exactly. So I believe every government program should be completely transparently funded. First of all, at the most local level possible, but then transparency. What are the labor, material, assets, equipment for each program at 100%? And what are those numbers at 10%, 20%, 50%? That's the type of transparency that would really open people's eyes. Like the Department of Defense is spending how much on what?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, why are you spending $890 on a fucking 5-year-old BlackBerry?
Yeah, exactly. Well, my thing is like I brought it up in our little bonus episode. Is like we just spent, I think like a crazy, like something in the trillions on the new F-35s, and they don't even work. They don't even take off. And it's like I really think in something like this, a crowdfunded government, it's like, wait, we're going to spend how much on these planes and they don't work? Like, why would we do that? Why are we giving this company business for something that doesn't work and may not ever work because they can't figure it out? I'm not giving to that.
While we already easily have the most powerful
Air Force.
No, we have both the first and second most powerful Air Force because we have the Air Force and then the Naval Air Force. We hold 1 and 2.
Yeah, I forgot about that. And it would just be pointless. So, all right. So my question would be so how do you do this? Do you do this in like online polls, or is it like a ballot that gets brought out every year, or is it like a monthly thing, or do you have like an emergency service where it's like, all right, this is what we're proposing, and you send it out to everybody? How do you do that?
Well, I think every level of government will figure out their own way, but the way that I proposed it, I think is pretty simple, which is you fund for the future. So you fund for a budget that's 2 years out. You have a same budget for 1 year out. So you're always funding for these 2 years in the future. Okay. Over the next year, you're preparing to take that future budget into effect. And then during every government program has an emergency fund, because you can imagine military is a great example. FEMA is another great example where the costs involved can swing wildly that you may have never predicted. Like if we did have an actual full-scale war with Iran, if we did actually have 7 hurricanes in 1 year, no amount of budgeting is going to prepare for that. So I see it as a continual funding cycle, and as government programs prove whether they're efficient or not, that would allow people to make their future spending decisions. If you break it down to an easy one like the pothole program, although the military would work just as fine, might be a little more complex. Over the years, you would start to see whether you are satisfied and other people are satisfied with budgets that may not get 100%. So if you're only filling 50% of the pothole program, are you happy with roughly 50% of potholes being filled? Maybe there's a bunch of junky ones in the alleys that didn't need to be filled anyway that we were wasting our money on. Or maybe the road starts looking like the moon, so you want to give more. Same thing with the military. Maybe the experts start to warn that we're not prepared correctly for various threats. The big one that I hear about is that our cyber warfare is actually laughable for where it should be given the threat that we face. However,
it's horrible.
Yeah, however, we're not ready for that. And another good example is how you guys talked about there's like tablets or some kind of communication that we're using right now that's just for training people.
Strike links.
Yeah.
I fucking hate strike links.
And this is what fascinates me, and this is why I love having this conversation with you guys, because you guys are the perfect examples of the type of influencers that would really help the average Joe make a decision about which programs to fund. And when people like you have direct experience using this technology, you could go out there and say, listen, don't give a penny to that stupid system, because when my guys are under fire, they're not using the tablet, they're using their traditional communication system, which needs more money for reasons X, Y, and Z. This is where experts...
Because our traditional communication systems, like we have these great radios, like Luke can go more into this because he's an actual comm operator, but fucking Like you have like 117 Golfs that are an example of an amazing radio that the military has. It really is nice. It's pretty user friendly by government standards. It's very powerful. It's good on the batteries. Like
it's super small.
It's super small. It's lightweight for the size and the power that you have from that radio. It's lightweight. Like it performs more than the it's called the 117 Fox, but it's half the weight.
Yeah, and
so it's like. But you can only find, you have to, you have to suck a fucking dick to get one of these. Because they don't exist. They're fucking like little fairy tales that dance around comm shops. I managed to get one on deployment, and my buddy that was an actual radio operator wanted to hit me. He just wanted to like beat my ass and take it, but I already had it serialized, so he couldn't.
Yeah, but I think that's a really good point, is like the experts on things, you know, like it becomes a lot more important where it's like actual user experts, not, you know, politicians or company experts that are like, oh, this is what we're giving. They're not selling you the product. The people that actually use the product would have a lot more influence on what they're actually using. And that could really set the market completely different than it is right now, just based on the crowdfunding. And I didn't even think of that point, but that's a really good point, and that should be stressed.
Yeah, I would love to see the debate going on between the manufacturers. You guys mentioned some plane that's just a boondoggle and it doesn't work. I'd love to see the manufacturer out there putting in commercials on TV, begging the populace to give more money because this plane just isn't there yet. And then people in the military saying like, listen, this is ridiculous. This thing doesn't work. You could throw $1 trillion at it and it's never going to be a good system. We currently use systems X, Y, and Z for this reason. And so I'd love that battle of ideas, because right now we don't have that. Right now we have lobbyists patting the backs of politicians, stuffing cash in some kind of foundation that they run, you know, like some backdoor lobbying going on.
Oh yeah,
and there is no true democratic small d input besides, well, do you vote red or do you vote blue this year? Well, if the lobbyists are in both parties, which they are, you're never going to see change in those types of government programs.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And it goes into like, you can see the direct consequences of like the way that we get our equipment and we get our training and the kind of stuff that we have to fight these wars. And you can see the firsthand effects of it. So when we first invaded Iraq, our body armor, it was called an interceptor vest. So basically it was a fucking vest, and these were pretty nice. You had just a back and a front ceramic plate that went inside of it. And then it kind of you just put it on. It was like a regular big poofy vest, and then you overlapped it and it Velcroed together. Pretty good. So then we started encountering IEDs and a lot of explosives. The interceptor vest is good at protecting your vital organs, but it's not very great at, you know, protecting you from getting blown up. Well, instead of, you know, thinking about this for a fucking second, the government's response was to issue IMTVs. IMTVs are so bulky that they had to issue a special little piece of like a Velcro thing that cost $300. Like, I think I was told it might be a Ruber, but I was told it was like $200, $300 a pop.
No, it's on the CIF. Like, so you get like an invoice for the gear that you get issued, and like on that CIF little list, it tells you how much like each piece of gear and all the attachments that are with it. And that little piece that you're talking about, Jared, is literally like $350.
Yeah. And all of this was because the body armor is so bulky that you can't shoulder a rifle.
Yeah.
So they're fucking issuing this body armor to soldiers and Marines that you can't properly shoulder your fucking weapon with.
Wow.
Because it's so bulky and big, and it's so fucking god-awful heavy that like trying to move quickly and be, you know, aggressive and violent, it completely hinders your capability to do that at all. So the government spent fucking, I don't even know how much money on fucking IMTVs to finally go back. So they have plate carriers now, which are basically, you'll go out, and if you get any kind of good body armor set, you'll get like a plate carrier type set.
It's basically an interceptor.
Yeah, it's basically an interceptor, but just different and more modern.
Yeah.
It just protects the front and back, and then when you get out of the military, you never get the side sappies they make you wear with that one.
All right, so like on this subject, I kind of want to see Typo's side, you know, from the intel standpoint, where like how do you see that affecting like the intel and the counterintelligence community at all in the military, Typo?
Well, that's kind of hard because Like, I really don't know how that would work because
Well,
a lot
all
of
right. So real quick. So I guess more what I mean is how would it affect like the like what were the things that you thought were completely pointless that you would see phased out almost immediately if you were telling people as an intel like being in the Marine Corps, you're like, hey, I was intelligence and these were like the things that I was doing and we shouldn't do them anymore because they're a waste of money.
well, like probably 80% of what I did in training was we would get told like you will never do this if you're in country. So,
I think that's every dude. They said the same shit
like,
to you. So my job as a foreign observer, man.
But,
Like,
hang
go
on.
ahead. No, you finish your thought.
Yeah, let him
But-
finish his thought.
Sorry.
But the only thing is like I kind of didn't really think about this, but like a lot of things that we do were always kept like hush hush. So to have like especially in like when you get to like levels of like top secret clearance, especially it's methods and it's methods of how they collect intelligence. So like to have like a 100% transparent government, I guess, funding these programs. I don't know. I don't know how that would exactly work because you would have to keep it secret because if the enemy knows how you're gathering information on them, then they could just change their methods of how they conduct their warfare. I don't know.
I can address that if you want a quick blurb on that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's actually a very common objection by people who really think about the idea is, aren't some of the things that government does necessarily state secrets? How much is too much transparency? Like, for example, if you had a witness protection program, if you listed out all the names and addresses of the witness protection program, it would lose its efficiency.
Yeah.
And you brought up a really good point there too. Like the way that we do our intelligence gathering, we might not want to give every detail line by line in the budget. And I'm okay with that. I think every government program should choose how much detail is enough detail and let the experts explain, obviously without giving away the secrets. But if enough experts were explaining to me how important it was that this way that we gather intelligence is seriously classified, but is one of the keys to the success of the military, I might be sold on that. If enough people with no financial interest were the ones telling me, like the boots on the ground were the ones telling me that, I would buy it. Obviously, if an equipment manufacturer was telling me that, I'd say, hey, tell me what the boots on the ground say about this secret idea that the government wants $1 billion to do.
Yeah.
So I think
I was just gonna say that's a really good point because it'd be, because like it'd be like the Patriot Act was going to be my example where it's like, the people that are sold on it, intelligence agencies that are sold on it, they'd absolutely be like, hey, this Patriot Act, yeah, you guys don't know what it is, but it's super important for us to do our job. But things like that. And I think that's I think another point of that is how whistleblowers are still very important in our society. And I was just going to go into that real quick because things that would violate people's rights, the people that are actually using it would have that moral obligation to themselves and to the populace to come up and state things still. So it would be transparent in that aspect where, hey, yeah, we can keep our secrets on certain things, but if it's absolutely a violation of rights, somebody would end up stepping up because of it.
So like when the NSA is completely 100% red-handed caught and spying on us, we can watch their fucking budget plummet within a month.
Yeah. It's like a stock. Every stock that I invest in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought that was a really good point because I didn't really think about it either. And my question, I guess, probably was a little bit throwing for you, Typo, because we never really talked about that. But I just think that's a really interesting point. Like, what secrets can be secret enough for?
I mean, especially in the military, like there's a lot of stuff that they said was secret, and 90%, like honestly, like a lot of stuff that you could literally Google it, and it was like I don't know, like some stuff wasn't secret, and then stuff that they said was secret. Like I didn't understand why it was secret, but I mean, you can't really question those things. But I don't know. That's like there was a lot of time and a lot of training that we went through, at least in Intel, that like I mean, probably even you guys too in the military, that like you would learn something that was either outdated, or you would learn something that was completely useless that wouldn't even be used if you were actually deployed or in an environment like with real world application. And all the time, all these different programs, it happens all the time. And I think definitely a crowdfunded government could eliminate that, especially like extremely a lot. Like,
absolutely. Like, well, especially on the outdated things that you learn. Like when I was going through comm school, we every radio that we learned and had tests on and everything, not one of them was in any shop that I was in after school, except like our basic handheld 152s. That's the only radio that we learned in comm school that I saw at any other unit after that, or any other unit have after that. Everything else that we learned in comm school, and we probably went over 10 different systems and it's like a 2.5 month program. We went over 10 systems and only one is still used in the fleet. Everything else was getting dirt mode. Yeah, phased out.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Crowdfunded, you there?
I'm with you. You guys want me to throw out a fun topic?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Since I'm talking to the Fighting Mongooses, do I have an opinion on the Boogaloo?
Ooh, the Boogaloo.
I got something about the Boogaloo that you guys might like about crowdfunded government. Because in order for the Boogaloo to take place, what would the government need in order to fund the Boogaloo?
Fuck ton of money.
A ton of money. Exactly. That's the reason why I believe that a crowdfunded government is the best hope against a tyrannical government. Because if it can only spend money that's voluntarily given to it, how many people are going to support the Boogaloo voluntarily? Why would you pay for a gun to be pointed at you and your family?
I don't know, man. I'm feeling froggy some days. I might voluntarily donate to the Boogaloo.
Shut up.
Fuck around, see what happens. I don't know.
No, but I think that's a great point. You know, because I mean, especially I know Typo and I, we've definitely said like we're ANCAPs through and through, but I think this is a really good way to even move people's ideals that way, where it's like, all right, you're funding the thing that absolutely affect you on a day to day, and you may not realize it, and you don't right now. You can't realize it because everything's smoke and mirrors. You can't see where your money's actually going. But if you actually see the things that you're giving money to, and then you see them in your day to day, like, oh, I paid for this service and it's horrible, like DMVs or something, you know, something basic like that. It's like, I pay for this service and I'm tired of waiting 8 hours for this service. I'm done paying for this service, and enough people do it. It'll just totally phase it out, and it'll be replaced with something in the free market because people will take their money there, or, you know, in cases like the DMV, it just won't be a thing anymore.
Yeah, fuck the DMV.
Yeah, fuck the DMV.
So I feel like it's the best. I feel like it's the best defense against tyranny to allow people to choose what to do with their money, because I can't imagine many people, if any, that would ever fund tyranny. I think the tyranny would stop. The first politician to propose it, it would stop. And you can imagine the different levels. So let's say, for example, there was a truly evil militia being set up somewhere in rural America, and they were doing terrible things to good, honest people. People would voluntarily pay to wipe them out, if not call in the Mongooses and just wipe them out yourselves, right?
Goddamn right.
People would gladly pay for the elimination of threats to their liberty, their community's liberty, etc. However, if the government told you in all 50 states we have militias that I think are going to be dangerous, but they haven't done anything bad to anybody yet, would you guys like to pay to put a stop to them? I don't see how that turns into the Boogaloo, because people would do their homework, say, wait, why are we worried about these honest, hardworking Americans who have awesome armor caches and are ready to use it against tyranny? Why? Who would want to put a stop to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And as it goes right now, all it would take is 51 votes or 51% and 60%, and you would have a federal government mowing down militias just because somebody went on TV and gave an emotional, passionate speech against certain militia groups.
Yeah, fucking oh god, that's a good point.
Yeah, I never thought about that. That's a really good point. Like, it almost eliminates I mean, maybe not completely eliminate tyranny, but it definitely minimizes it to like a lot. Like, people aren't gonna fund something that's like literally like killing people. Like,
and at the very least, it would fucking, because like people will also only donate to things they actually pay attention about or they care about. So like, whereas you only have so many people that are dumb enough or they think that they can enact change and they'll go out and fucking vote every year, more people would possibly donate to different sections of the fucking government, including the military, because that becomes like, oh, I need that. That's just not taken out of my paycheck now.
I think it's possible that some areas of government get more money than they get now. Public education. Public education being one of them, VA benefits being another one of them. There are these things that people scream about every week on Twitter, and they say we need to push our politicians to do more. And I wish the discussion was reversed. I wish the politicians were looking at us and saying, you people, you Americans need to do more for the VA. You Americans need to give more to these programs that are so important. I wish it was reversed. Right now, we beg and plead on our knees. We beg the government to do more with our money. You know what? Tell us what really needs our money. Make the case, and people will give. I know they will. There are so many passionate people who are ready to give money to these government programs if they had the opportunity, if they weren't forced to.
Yeah, so that in order to get public funding, you don't have to go and try to plead and beg with the emotionalist reptiles. You try to plead and beg with normal, everyday Americans that can actually understand and relate to your pain, unlike reptiles.
Exactly. But no, I think that's a very good point where it's like the people are, it's like it really puts it back on the people of the United States that really have to do something about this, because we're not, and the only reason why politicians are there to facilitate what the people want, where right now it's the opposite, where the politicians are campaigning for this, that, or the other, and they're facilitating their own needs and their own wants and what's going to get them the big paycheck. But if you flip it and you reverse it, it changes the game completely. And man, this is you're making me question everything right now, man. What the fuck?
And another thing is, like, I was just thinking about was oh shit. So like, it actually creates a very real-time punishment for because it's not going to eliminate tyranny. Like, I never believe that any system is perfect, including my own. So absolutely, you're gonna have tyranny. You're gonna have bad people doing bad, shady things. You're gonna have people being like, hey, help us out. We need some money to go help this poor region in Bolivia. But actually, you're like funding mercenaries to fucking kill people and like import coke.
Yeah.
But the thing is that when that shit's actually found out and people start coming out about it, is that there would be an immediate, almost private sector, free market capitalism backlash against the federal government.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I never want to be one to claim that crowdfunded government has all the answers or that it's perfect, because if you hate government and if you hate what government can do, it's still technically possible under crowdfunded government. I just think much less likely. And like you just said, there would be the transparency and the evidence. Is a program effective? Hey, how did that program do last year? Let's check the report card. Let's see what it actually did. See if I want to give for it 2 years from now or not.
Yeah, and I believe the market would provide plenty of different outlets, even to feed people's biases or ones that would claim to be objective, that would help, like, that would come out and be like, analyze this shit, or even podcasts like mine or Fagcast or Part of the Problem or any of the other big ones out there that we know and love. Like, they'll sit, I'm sure they would sit there day by day, especially the anarchists out there, and be like, no, you can't fund this fucking program. This is why, I'll lay it out for you. Like, there would always be an objective voice against these kinds of things, against the people trying to tell you what you should give your money to.
Well, yeah, there'd always be that other side.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why crowdfunding government, it's always been an idea. I did not invent it. I'm just the only one really pushing solely for it. And I think it was completely unrealistic maybe a decade or two ago, because it requires crowdfunding technology, it requires the internet to research, and it requires the social media to have influencers and people tell you what to research, what to focus on. So these types of things couldn't have existed a couple decades ago because they simply didn't exist. So these are the types of powers that I believe the people now have. We have all the information you could possibly want on the internet, and you have so many people who are willing to voluntarily research and spread their ideas. And you can either believe somebody or do more research and find out if they're full of it or not. That's the beautiful thing about the future, is that technology can help free us from the slavery of taxation.
I say it almost every show. Technology is what's going to create the idea that we do not need government anymore, because it just gives you it is the ultimate freedom, because a person that a bum can go into a library, a person that's homeless can go into a library and use a computer and look up anything that they want. And it honestly, it's the game changer. The internet was the game changer, and it's still, and the thing is, like, it's still heavily regulated, and the majority of people don't even see the majority of the internet. But even the amount that we have right now is such an expansion of knowledge and creativity and ideas that the world has never seen before. And I think it's more powerful than the Industrial Revolution and any other revolution that's ever happened in the history of our world, because it's literally changed everything, and it will continue to do so because it grows at an exponential rate.
It grows faster than the fucking government can legislate it.
Exactly. You can't do it. It's not possible.
So I see crowdfunded government going both ways, by the way. I think crowdfunded government, the reason why I've made a lot of friends on Liberty Anarchy Twitter is just because a lot of people see this as a great first step or a stepping stone towards exposing what government does, and then whittling down the programs and maybe trading nonprofits that do some of the government services, because the information comes out that this nonprofit does with 90% efficiency what government money does with 60% of it. So I do see it as a great opportunity for anarchists and libertarians to really start to whittle down government. But I got to tell you guys, because I love to talk about it, some of my biggest supporters are straight up communists. They're just voluntarists.
Yeah, I can see it.
And people,
I was going to make that argument.
Yeah, the only people that I disagree with are authoritarian collectivists, and they can honestly go pound sand and get out of here, because
I'm with you on that one, brother. I'm with you on that one.
I got nothing to say to them besides keep your hands off my money. But in regards to, not every communist is an authoritarian. Some people just want to live in a commune and take all their money and pool it together and do what they want with it. But the way that our system is set up now, there's so much BS that they have to pay for. There's so many things they don't believe in. And the system is so hard to band together and form a commune or have a neighborhood that acts virtually as a commune. Like there's some cities, some rich ones around Chicago on the North Shore, that if you allowed them to choose how much money to give to government, a lot of the families would be given 75% of their money to government. Every time they have taxes of being voted on, they vote for higher taxes. They love their government. And so I see myself as servicing both sides of this equation. On one hand, if you hate government, crowdfunded government would be a great opportunity to see if other people agree with you. And if you like communism and socialism, well, here's your chance to fund it. It's just going to be voluntary. So shut your mouth about taking my money for your socialism and your communism and do it yourself.
Yeah, we're even within the system of your crowdfunded government, like the services and like the protection and the police and the military forces. I can't see a lot of people trying to attack a hippie commune fucking up in like northern Montana somewhere, leaving everybody alone.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that.
That's a hard sell.
But the only thing is, so like what you were talking about with, there's still going to be local municipal tyrants. How tyranty are they is going to be up in the air based on the programs that are being funded. And I think the only difference or the only differing of opinion that you would have with, because you very much go to both sides, but the only differing of opinion that you would have with, the anarchists and the libertarians and things like that is the rights question, where it's like, what constant, and then it would just go up to opinion in the majority of people, which as an anarchist you would see as, the majority should never
rule on the minority.
Rule on the minority, and I think that would be the only thing. But I think, like you said, it's a very good stepping stone towards moving towards that way, and it would be beneficial for the anarchist and libertarian community to get behind something like this, because it still creates that safety net that people are scared of going to, from this democracy, this democratic republic, to straight anarchy the way that we see it. It's still a very good, like, middle of the road where people can see how their money is actually working for them. And if they actually agree with how their money is working for them, do they agree with the system? And I think in a lot of instances, yeah, there will be some beneficial parts of it, but at the same time, they could also see the the flip side where it's like, do we really need these programs? And that's where I would come from as, you know, an ANCAP or something of that ideal.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
That's the reason why people, you know, some people are still objecting to the crowdfunded government idea because it doesn't have any principles besides voluntarism. So it still allows tyrants to be tyrantee if people do want to pay for it. And for that, I can't. All I can do is stay nonpartisan, apolitical, and let people do with their government, with their money, what they want to vote for and what they want to pay for. That's where I draw the line. So I was actually called a statist, and they almost sacrificed me at Childerberg because I have because I do allow tyranny to exist, and I don't like, for example, people have asked me on Twitter, like, well, shouldn't the rule be for crowdfunded government that you follow the NAP, the non-aggression principle? And I say no, it shouldn't be. If people want to have a bad government that you think is bad, that's their right just as much as it's your right to do whatever you want with your money. And if you don't like it, then you have to move to Somalia, you know. At some point At some point, I'm still a statist because that is still my argument, which is if people voluntarily support a bad state, that's it. That's the best that democracy and as a republic can offer you. This is what the people are voting for, and this is what the people are paying for. Anything else would be tyranny. To tell those people what they want to live under is tyranny. Even though you guys can make great philosophical arguments against them, it's still tyranny in the reverse.
Exactly. Well, and I say that all the time too, where it's like anarchy can't be governed. Like, it's not something that it can be just like laid down by the law. Like, it has to be something that if people not majority, if not everybody has to accept it. Like, it's not something that it can be legislated and it's like, all right, we have no more leaders and this is how it's going to be, because it would go into the form of anarchy where that isn't what we talk about when we talk about, you know, an ANCAP society or things like that.
Where you're gonna have 150 dick licks up in the fucking mountain that are just gonna be like, we're a government now, and then they're gonna come down and fucking convince
take over other people.
Bunch of other fucking retarded dick licks that they're important too, and then it's just gonna expand from there.
Yeah.
Well, no, and then I feel like for the tyranny question, I really feel like, I mean, it's really hard to sit there and just actually like write a check to the people that are beating you. Like, I feel like
but not everybody's getting beat. That's the point.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I mean, at the end of the day, fucking any government, or as you were going into the lack thereof, man, it's at the consent of the fucking people. If the people want this, or they're comfortable with this, or they want that, and they're comfortable with that, that's what's gonna happen. Like, even fucking unarmed people can overthrow a government. It doesn't take a large percentage. It doesn't even take a majority percentage to overthrow a government historically. So, so most systems, at the end of the day, you can make a pretty solid argument. At the end of the day, it's democratic, whether you view it as disgusting or is not. Because I always get the North Korean argument, but it's like, yeah, but obviously the majority of those fucking people are just like okay with it. They buy into the bullshit and they fucking live it.
Absolutely.
Look at me over here defending North Korea. What?
Yeah, oh my God, what just happened?
You fucking sadist.
But no, so it goes into where it's like, I honestly don't think that tyranny would be as large as an issue as it is with public funding. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I agree.
Like, fucking, it's still mob rule in this country now. The only difference is that those fucking people, they're getting their asses whooped by the fucking tyranny. They could actually not give their money to it. So you're still going to see I feel like you're still going to see a cut down on it.
Yeah, 100%. Because it's not by force.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, well, and that's how the Boogaloo could start, because they're so pissed off that they're not funding this and they're getting their asses beat still by it because other people are still funding it.
So they start shooting shit. I'm about it. Shooting power.
Jared just wants a Boogaloo. Jared just wants a Boogaloo.
That's now.
Yeah, Jared's not an ANCAP. He's not a minarchist. No, he's a goddamn collapsitarian. That's what he is. He wants everything to burn. He wants everything to burn so he can start shooting shit, so he can have spicy nostalgia and bitch about it the rest of his life.
Goddamn right. For those of you that don't know or don't follow my Twitter, spicy nostalgia is PTSD. It's just my word for it because it's better.
One of my greatest goals is to take collapsitarians, and I want you to have faith in the system. I want to regain anything that you lost in your innocence that made you lose all hope for the system. The future's bright. We don't have to burn it down.
Nah, yeah, that's your goal, man. If you can convince like the collapsitarians like skipping shit and
I'm never gonna get anywhere with the free rifle, man.
No,
he's burning it down. He's still burning down CFG, man.
I love him, but
awesome.
Hey, dude, imagine it though. If you get him and be like, all right, this is fine. It doesn't look like it's gonna blow up. You won. You won, dude.
Yeah.
There's nobody you can't face after that.
Yeah, I mean, even being an ANCAP, and I love talking about the Boogaloo and how not fun that might be. I'd rather do things peacefully.
Yeah,
100%.
Being serious for half a second, I don't want.
Yeah.
That shit's gonna.
Now,
yeah,
that being said, I'm happy to repeat a point I've made before, which is I'm actually not an American hero in the sense of my position, because during the American Revolution, I would not have been with you guys. I would not have been a fighting mongoose picking up my musket and saying, you know what, let's go, redcoats, line them up. Right? I would have been saying somebody, oh, let's change the system. Let's petition King George and let's try to change. Right? So I'll be the first to admit that in history, sometimes you guys are right. Sometimes it takes might to overthrow tyranny. And sometimes petitioning the king, he just takes it and balls it up and throws it in the trash.
But in other times, petitioning the king and giving your demands creates constitutional monarchies and expands freedom. Like, it can go either way, man. Like your side of things are trying to recreate things or trying to adjust things are just as important as the belief that the people can overthrow this shit whenever they want.
Exactly. Like, it goes both ways. Like, you can't.
When your side fails, hey man, that's what happened. It's time for my side to take over.
I love it. I love it. I think there's a role for both parts. There's the peaceful voluntarists like myself who are trying to change the system, and there's always the threat of a well-armed population saying, hey, by the way, if this tyranny is not stopped, we are ready to go. He's going to try first, and he's going to be as nice as he can. But as soon as he throws his hands up, we're coming up right behind him.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. That's my entire thing. I would rather change people's minds and hearts day in and day out than have to go down and, live out of a shack in the woods and randomly attack military members, some of which I could know or not know, either way. Like, I would rather not do that, but I would rather change people's minds than
eating salted meat and potatoes out in the mountains.
Probably exactly. No internet.
Oh, that would suck. Dude. How am I going to jack off? Like, this is.
You're going back to Marine Corps standards. Use your imagination.
I don't like that. It gets dark.
It gets way too dark. I don't need to go back to that place.
Pornhub actually reels me back a little bit.
But yeah, no, God, man, I think it's a really good idea, and I think it's something. All right, so let's go here. How would you just start petitioning the state to do something like that? Is that what you're doing right now, or are you just talking on podcasts and putting your ideas out there to try and get as many people to start thinking this kind of way? Like, what are you doing to try and get your idea to be the end all be all at this point?
I'm just starting with education. I'm trying to get as many people who I think are receptive to the idea or not receptive to at least consider the idea. And then localization is key, and starting with local politics is the way that a crowdfunded government would start. You're never going to voluntarily crowdfund the federal government, I don't believe, unless you prove it successful at the local level, whether it's a city or a county. And let's just say this, give me 10% of your property taxes involuntarily collected, and give people the chance to choose which buckets to put them in. Give them 4 or 5 buckets and just introduce the idea of voluntary choice. And I think the first question when a county or a city allows you to choose 10% of where your money goes might be, why not 20, 30, 50? And another question.
It breaks the seal.
Yeah, and another question. what if we just eliminated that 10% and if people just gave that last 10%? Let's just try that out, right? So we know it worked out well to let you choose and just see how that works out. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. And that's how the system moves forward. So I'm just trying to educate people about the idea. And then I have extremely pragmatic incrementalist approaches. I try to be as non-radical as I can because my audience isn't you guys, although I appreciate how receptive you are. My audience is definitely like your traditional Democrat, your traditional Republican, the Democrat who's angry about the border wall. I'm like, great, you shouldn't have to pay for that. Simple stuff like that.
Yeah. That's a good way to.
But even and then applying it directly to the military, like I mean, the thing I'm envisioning with this whole crowdfunding government thing is that you would have basically at the end of the day, you would have this very small but very well trained, very efficiently trained, very well equipped, and very efficiently equipped military force. So, like when you get into like crowdfunding government, I feel like most of the backlashes would be like, when you go into like the military, especially, is like, well, how are you going to stop the fucking Chinese from invading, right? Like, how are you going to stop the Chinese and the Russians?
Well, it's like that's very small, very well equipped and well trained military.
Yeah, and that's
I think you put the president on TV and he says 5 of our military bases were just bombed by China and they're coming for us. How much money goes into that crowdfund?
100%.
Oh yeah.
They are done for. They are smoked.
Well, you can see it with things like World War II and after 9/11, with like after Pearl Harbor and after 9/11, where we get a fucking attacked and voluntary rates of enlistment fucking skyrocket
Jared, after. That was gonna be my point. God damn it.
Well, and then you have the amount of, so like there was in World War II there was like the war bonds and stuff, and I mean military members were required to buy war bonds. Like majority of their paychecks went to these war bonds, but you look at it stateside and millions of Americans bought into these war bonds after Pearl Harbor because it was like, oh, you just rattled the dog's cage, now you fucked up. Now they voluntarily gave their money to, the military basically to go in and do what they had to do to stop our bases from getting attacked. But I think that's a really good point too, where it's just like, you just put the president on TV and tell the people what happened. And then you get the other sources from, the military members that survived those attacks and things like that. And boom, you have all the funding that you need. And I think that's a really great point too.
Well, even going into the deeper into like tactics and strategy of what that would look like and how you could actually defeat it too, even before the fucking president comes on TV and starts declaring like, oh, we've been attacked. Like, on a strategic level, for a conventional military force to have to deal with both like some kind of like very professionally trained, very competent force that's very well equipped, and also have to deal with every fucking redneck that wants to shoot and blow up his supply trucks, trying to push deeper against that well-funded, equipped force, I think it creates a nightmare scenario for any kind of fucking really large-scale conventional warfare trying to actually attack the nation. And then, as you guys both pointed out eloquently, is that then while you were already dealing and still having defeated this small professional military force that's very competent, very well trained, is that, in the couple months that you've been spending trying to chase it around fucking America, getting blown up and shot at by every redneck around the way, we also just swelled their numbers by 250,000.
Yeah, exactly.
And we have 4 times the funding that we did last month. And there's like fucking 1,000 brand new main battle tanks in fucking construction right now because American citizens are just literally pouring their fucking money into killing you.
Yeah, fuck.
Dude, okay, so I want to ask you, how did you come up with this? Were you just fed up with what your money was going to, or where did this whole idea come from you?
Actually, it's probably not what you would expect. Back in college, I studied political science and social policy, and I was a huge socialist, and I loved the idea of the government choosing what to do. But the question I always had was, how is it exactly that because I was like, well, the government needs to do more. That's what I was taught in college is, here's all these great programs that don't get enough funding. And I was like, man, how can we get people to give money to these very important programs? But, it was a decade ago. At the time, there wasn't crowdfunding. In fact, that's why crowdfunding government government is 3 words because crowdfund wasn't even an official word when I was coming up with the idea. And crowdfund is now 1 word according to Merriam's dictionary. So over the years, I was just talking about this idea and saying, how can we give more power to the people? And then bam, crowdfunding starts. GoFundMe proves to be a very good way for thousands, millions of people to give to very good causes. And I was like, oh my God, crowd-funded government. Easy. Who hasn't thought of this, right? And that's actually a very common sentence that people say to me is, I had this exact idea blank years ago. And I think almost everybody has that idea when you're getting your check ready in February and March and April, and you're like, dude, I don't want to pay for half this crap. The other stuff I want to give the rest of my money to, and the idea just goes away because it's so crazy. It's like, that's too crazy. We could never make it
happen.
work.
allowing people to actually have choice where their money goes. What are you, nuts?
Yeah, people aren't going to give to the important programs, and the whole society is going to burn. So that's stupid. They should just steal it from all of us, I guess.
And that's why I view this as a win-win, because either it works or, boogaloo. I'm just kidding.
So basically, I was doing enough. I was doing enough arguing with my friends, and they were all just telling me, like, dude, you got us convinced. It's a great idea. You're the only person talking about it. Shut up. Make a website. Go on podcasts, and have somebody, fight back against this. And you know what I found out? I would love if I could stop going on podcasts and stop my stupid blog and stop Twitter. If somebody could just tell me why this is a stupid idea, I'd have a lot more free time. And nobody can do it. The only thing people can say is stupid stuff like, who will build the roads? And if you don't like it, go to Somalia. That's all people tell me. It's like, there are no arguments.
So basically what people tell us too.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm not even libertarian. Like, that's not even my ideal set. Like, what are you talking about?
I just want you to choose what the government spends money on.
Yeah, you can still have your government. Just don't, let's just make it voluntary.
Do you like pot? Do you not want guys that have armored vehicles, body armor, and assault rifles to stop you from smoking pot? Well, you can just not give them money, dude.
Would you like to stop funding the border wall? Would you like to? Hey, here's another good one that happened recently. They had some videos of all these kids wrapped up like burritos at the border.
Oh,
and
yeah.
People were howling on Twitter. Oh my God, I can't believe how badly they're treated. Imagine if the government then said, yeah, here's the fund to put all these people in nice housing. How many 5-star hotels would get filled up overnight, given the amount of outcry?
Oh, yeah.
So it's basically you just tell people, basically, this is how I shoot straight with normal, quote unquote, normal people. Although you guys are the 3 most normal guys I know, so don't take offense, right?
Oh yeah, so normal. We just had a whole dark conversation about Pornhub, but yeah, we're normal.
Yeah, we're good. We're great.
But that's how I try to approach the idea with quote unquote normal people now is instead of shooting for the moon and telling people about this crazy idea of voluntarily funding the whole thing, and just start with the basics. If you don't want to pay for that, do you wish you could pay twice as much for that? I haven't met a single person, by the way, and I've been searching. Find me one person who wants to give the exact same amount of money they gave last year to every program. Find me that person.
Yeah, there's no one. You're not gonna find them.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy, man. Like, I mean, you've definitely came in at a way better idea than probably we have, because, I mean, honestly, like. I mean, even your crowdfunding idea that like me and Luke say we're anarchists, but that would almost create like at least some forms of anarchy in different parts of the country. Maybe not on the full level that we desire, but like I'm sure you would find small communities that are just like, yeah, we're not funding that, and they don't want to fund anything for the government. So then you'd have these small little communities that just don't even have one almost. Like that's, I mean, I guess they could elect their politicians, but what can they do if they have no money?
Yeah, they would essentially just be ceremonial positions at that point, which is, well, 100% of my government is run by voluntarily funded nonprofits, and I collect $0 as mayor of this city. Right? Perfect. Done.
That sounds like the best mayor in the world, right
That's
there.
That's awesome, dude. Dude, dog mayor. Don't ever take that title away from dog mayor.
You're right. The dog mayor was the best mayor in the world. But
he is the best politician of all time. It goes dog mayor, Thomas Massey. Those are my 2 favorites.
Well, you can expect to see it in the future.
Yeah, Theodore, I have a question. Who would you say is like your biggest allies for this? Would you say it's been libertarians? Would you say it's people on the left? I mean, who's gave you at least? I maybe gave you a platform the most.
Well, the people
Like,
who
who
gave
do
me
you-
the liberty, the anarcho movement are the people who are crazy enough to consider this idea. I keep trying to get onto liberal podcasts or straight up conservative podcasts, and I've had a little success on the conservative side, but none on the liberal side. In fact, I recorded with a liberal recently, and the debate went so badly that he hasn't published it yet. He added me on Twitter and said crowdfunded government is a stupid idea, and I clicked on his little thing and he had a podcast. I said let's record, and it's been 2.5 weeks, and we haven't seen anything yet. So
Oh, what a pussy!
right. Well, the thing is, when it's really interesting because at the end of it we agreed. I really hope he publishes it one day because at the end I said, all right, just how about this, man? Do you want to give a little bit more to some programs, a little less to other programs? He's like, of course. I'm like, great, welcome to the movement.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, 'cause, like, and how can you argue that? Like, I just don't understand the other. I guess it's my problem with the social or like socialists and communists and those types of ideals. It's like, all right, well, especially the ones that are argued right now. Like, let's say they're not even fully socialist, but they want many socialized programs. It's like, all right, let's do the socialized program thing, but let's not do it with government. Like that would be our argument. Let's let private businesses do it.
Yeah,
and let's try that. But they totally like if it's not ran by the government, then it's wrong and it's abhorrent and it's the evil capitalist society. But I mean, even in your ideal of the like of voluntarism, it's still. I don't understand how they can still argue against that because they still have their great ruler,
I think I think what it is because when you start breaking it down, like you get to choose and you get to control, you're breaking down that like sanctimonious divine worship of the precious state. So that's why I feel like you get more like even from the anarcho-communists and the ANCAPs and the libertarians and such, even minarchists and all that, like we're more receptive of you is because we don't view like even minarchists or even I'd venture to say into the classical liberals, they don't view government in a divine manner. Even a classical liberal will tell you like as it's just a necessary evil, but I don't actually like the fucking government. That's their argument. So you're able to get that kind of reception from those guys because they don't view it as this divine thing that you can't change. They're always about trying to make it better and trying to change it and trying to make it better for humanity and the people and freedom and liberty and such.
Yeah, and actually, I was really lucky that that Trump got elected in the sense that this doesn't become a Tea Party movement because if Clinton were elected, then I would only be getting support from Republicans who are like, yeah, slash the government budget. So the great thing is now I'm on the Democrat side of a lot of issues where I'm like, isn't this stupid? Isn't the border wall stupid? Instead of just criticizing, so I can go both ways on this argument. I don't just get locked in as a Tea Party guy, which clearly I'm not. I'm apolitical and very receptive to whatever you want to do with government.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you said when you started this, you were pretty socialist type, right? That's what you said?
Oh, yeah. The whole reason I studied political science and social policy is because I love the idea of what government can do, and I love big government programs that solve everybody's problems. That's what fascinates me about the world is being an architect of politics. So, yeah, I was a huge socialist, a believer like, hey, the rich should pay more so that we can give more to these awesome programs.
Yeah. So where would you consider, this crowdfunded government idea sitting at? Do you think it's just like the crossroads of all the ideas culminating, or do you see it as like a more socialist type program or a more conservative, or how would you, if you had to brand it a certain way to fit the narrative that you want to fit, how would you brand that?
The best thing about crowdfunded government is that it's a purple idea. It's literally right down the center, and it's voluntarist. The great part about this idea, and a few podcasts, they've tried to really pin the idea down and put an ism or put an ist on it. And you can't. You just can't. It's a voluntarist idea regarding how to fund government. Period.
Yeah, it's if this were like mainstream, a voluntary funded government in Iran will look completely fucking different from a voluntary funded government in fucking United States or Canada or France or fucking Russia. Like it would literally just, all you're doing is you're really breaking it down to voting with your dollar, where it's like we will have the system that we are willing to fund with our own money, what we voluntarily give you from the backs of our own labor.
Yeah, I love that conversation too, which is I believe, so I'm an American, so my focus is at first I got to put my own gas mask on before I help the person next to me. So I want to fix America first, but the next thing I want to do is countries like Iran, can you imagine if they voluntarily funded their military, would they be doing any of this nonsense? Because what I'm told, and I don't know if I believe it or not, but I think I do, is that the Iranian people are much like the Americans. Overall, they're very peaceful people who just want to be left alone and just live their lives and have fun. Like they're like the whole nation of Iran, we're told, are like these angry militarist Islamicists who just want to destroy everybody. And all the evidence that I have, all the Iranian Americans that I've met, that is 100% not true.
Absolutely.
And
if you look at the majority of the Middle East in general, because that's like our hotspot in America is like the Middle East. They're all crazy radical Islamists that want death to America. And it's like, no, if you go to the villages and, you know, some of those major cities, like that's not what's getting preached at all. Those are radical groups that get airtime because it funds this militaristic idea that we can keep going over there and fighting. But I feel like the majority of populations would be a lot more receptive to your message, where they get to truly choose where their money goes, and their governments would absolutely reflect, probably in many ways, the same thing that we would agree with, where it's just like, and you know, some might be a little bit more funding for things like religion and things like that, because that's what their country is founded on. But even with ours, like they would be very similar in the aspects of, yo, let us do our own thing and we'll fund what we want to, because we think these are the natural infrastructure of what government is supposed to do.
So maybe there is a chance that I move to Somalia. If Somalia voluntarily crowdfunds their government first, peace out, y'all. Why don't you copy this and maybe I'll come back?
Yeah, if you go to Somalia, if you get all the Somalians to agree to that, I might move to Somalia with you, bro.
Hey man, those are some hard fighting motherfuckers though. Like half starved, fucking taking on like giant freight liners and fucking pontoon boats. Like that's some hard dick shit.
Yeah.
But as like an anarchist, like you can't even like argue it, because the whole time that I came into at least anarchism was the whole reason of force. Like they were using like taxation, like they're forcing us to live by their standards and forcing me to give up my money for their program, and eliminating that. Like I
don't agree with you. Because there's still going to be people that will try to infringe on your rights. So it doesn't go with the ANCAP ideals on all aspects.
I'm not saying it on all aspects. I'm just saying that I'm not going to argue it, at least right now, because it already takes away, like if I don't agree with government, I don't have to give my money to government.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I agree with that. I'm just saying that I completely agree. I think it's a great, like I said, a great stepping stone towards where we want, without creating or dismantling this religion that we have bought ourselves into.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that, at least in the way I see it is like having a crowdfunded government would almost, maybe not at first, and I'm sure government would still be around for a long time, but eventually I think government would almost phase itself out that way, because people just would find other things in the free market that are privatized to donate to. But maybe not, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just saying that that's what I think would happen. Like, I mean, I think the government would be a billion times better and would actually represent the people, at least most of the people. And I think that, maybe even eventually down the road, maybe like way after my lifetime, but the government would almost like just go away.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love the lifetime conversation. I'm sorry, I keep stepping on you guys. My bad.
No, you're the guest, man. Step all you want.
Yeah.
All
yeah.
right, I'll step one more time. I love the idea of the in my lifetime thing. I'm totally realistic here. I expect to live and die and maybe possibly never see any progress in this idea. I just think that I'm a prophet. I just think that I'm way ahead of my time. And I think in the future, fast forward 1,000 years, there is no way with the technology that we're going to have that we're still going to pay X% for 100% of programs. There is just no way. So I'm totally cool if for my whole life nobody even experiments with this idea and I'm relegated to the far corners of the internet with my stupid idea. That's totally fine with me because I have 1,000-year plan. I'm all right if I just start the idea, light the fire, and get people interested. And one day people will dust off the history books and they, this guy on Twitter was freaking nuts, right? I don't know. It's kind of an interesting idea. Well, has anybody tried that? I guess not. What do you think? So I'm all right if this doesn't happen quickly. It doesn't have to happen in my lifetime. I'm not a failure. That's okay.
Yeah. I mean, even like what you're saying, like, I mean, how much of taxation, like how much of my money actually goes to the government? What is it, like 40%? Something like that? Yeah.
Oh, sales taxes, property taxes, gas taxes, all these tax.
Yeah. So even if you open the door enough to where I can say 1% of my tax dollars go to what I choose, that's even better than what we have now. In my opinion,
like that'll snowball so quickly. It would snowball.
Actually, Andrew Yang said it. Oh, I'm sorry, I stepped again. That will snowball. Andrew Yang said it. That was one of his proposals. I cannot believe that somebody at that debate stage has that idea. He didn't get a chance to talk about it. But as I heard people talking about it on Twitter, I was like, hey, by the way, P.S., crowdfunded government. Check it out.
I remember that during the debates here and starting to hear it was Andrew Yang because he's more of like the techno Democrat. But no, yeah, he was doing like a 1%. I think what was a 1% proposal where like 1% of the taxes that you pay will be directed towards whatever government function you want.
Yeah, and I love that idea. It's definitely going to snowball, as was said.
Oh yeah, it would. I just think things like that would radically change it, and getting more people, at least even like on the libertarian side, I don't see how you could form like a really true argument, even if you're the ANCAPs, like you can't legislate it, like you can't let.
Oh, you cut out, buddy.
Getting people giving the people the idea to like finally start moving towards that. I don't see how you could argue that at all. I think it's a really good idea. We might have to look into it a little bit more.
I was loving the Twitter threads where people were bringing up that 1% thing, and all the end caps are like 100, 100, 100. I was like, yes.
Yeah, dude. We're a radical bunch. We're just gonna take that shit. We're gonna fly 100 miles with it. Don't you know?
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I wish I was smarter and came up with that idea before you.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to end it here, but I mean, does anybody have any other questions that we'd like to ask?
I'm good. How are you doing over there, Theodore?
What's the stupid government program of the week, guys?
Oh yeah, it's not my turn. I did it last week.
Is it Typo's turn? Because I think I did it the one before you.
It's Typo's turn.
Yeah, Typo's turn. Typo, what do you got, buddy?
God damn it. Well, I was actually before that, I just want to ask you, Theodore, has anyone ever brought up a question to you that has stumbled you or at least made you question how this crowdfunding government would work for like different programs or just certain things? Like what was the biggest challenge for you for your crowdfunding government idea?
I haven't heard it yet. As soon as somebody does it, I'll stop. I'm done with it.
That's a good way.
Move to Somalia and
Maybe it was exactly how is it going to work, and then that's how I was like, well, I guess you have to make budgets, so that's where I was like, well, you'll fund for the future, and then you'll fund for the near future, and then there will be a period of time to allow a year of lag time to allow the government to adjust the programs accordingly. I think that might have been it, because I was like, well, yeah, you can't just have like everything can't be funded by an emergency fund, because then how do you have a budget? So that might have been it. Somebody was like, well, so how exactly does it work? And I'm like, well, you guess you fund for the future, and then you figure it out in the meantime, and then it gets implemented, and there's an emergency fund.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be like in 2018, you vote for like 2019's budget, and then there would be like a program or a system that if like, oh, we got invaded, or fucking there's a hurricane just hit fucking New Orleans again, like you would have an emergency procedure where it's like, oh, we need this X amount of money now because
China bombs 5 military bases, and then there's always an emergency crowd fund, or there's 7 hurricanes. There's always an emergency crowd fund for each program that the executive director or the president can go up, or the mayor can go up and say, hey, we need some ton of money because this just happened and we don't expect it. This is roughly what it's going to cost. It's roughly going to do this. We got to get going.
It'd be interesting to see how much money like from a crowdfunded government would go towards the states, your local level compared to your federal level. Like how many people would trust their money in the hands of their local politicians compared to their federal politicians?
I think a lot more. That's the reason why I advocate for localism. You got to move every level of government down as much as you constitutionally can at the moment, and maybe change the Constitution if you're talking about federalism. Get things down as the ground level as possible. Do them in the neighborhood, like welfare. Don't do welfare at the federal level. Do it at the neighborhood level. Like, who on your block needs money and food? Give them money and food if they truly need it. Done.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like the federal government just shrinks down to like just as Ron Swanson put it, just a man sitting in a room deciding who to nuke. And the answer is nobody.
I think that's a really good point, where it just, you have to, I mean, even with the libertarian ideals, you hear it all the time where it's like, we have to make this, it has to go to the communities first. Like you can't do this at the federal level at the beginning, because it won't correlate. Like nothing will work. So you really have to get communities and neighborhoods involved to start making decisions, whether libertarian or crowdfunded. You have to get those communities and neighborhoods and smaller cities, larger cities, counties to really start making those decisions together. And then moving on from there to, your federal level, your state level, your federal level, and beyond.
Yeah, definitely localize everything. I think that's better. Like, I don't know. I always thought that too, because why would you want to give money to, like, if you're in Arizona, why would I want to give my money to some dude in New York?
Yeah, fuck New York.
I'd rather my money go to the homeless guy I see down the street when I go get my gas every day,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But actually, thank God I asked you that question. It gave me enough time to think of a story real quick.
Yeah, there we go. I was about to ask. You got your wasted tax money story typo.
All right, so the story is definitely wasted tax money, but at the same time, it's just the incompetence of 9th Engineer Support Battalion, the first unit me and Luke were in.
Hey.
Oh man, dropping unit names and everything. Yeah, fuck that.
I will drop that unit name every chance I get to prove how shitty it is.
Dude, they were trash. But this was after Luke left, and I got to go to the Republic of Korea, South Korea, and when we went there, we did it was just training with the Rock Marines. And it was actually a lot of fun. It was really cool meeting all the Rock Marines and just just doing all these different exercises and simple training. They just wanted to talk to us. A lot of times they just wanted to trade uniform items with us because they thought ours was really cool. But when we went there, we're an engineer support battalion, so we had to set up a fob, and we had bulk feelers with us. Well, for some reason I forgot why, but the bulk feelers had to set up on the beach. And then their fuel lines had to go through, on the side of this road and go all the way to our fob. And it was probably 200 meters away. It wasn't that far. But for some reason, they only could set up on the beach. Oh, I think it's because they weren't really using fuel. At least most of the lines weren't. They were just using water for training. So that's why they were at the beach. So it's continuous sorts of this fake fuel. Well, when they were setting up the fuel lines, so our training was weird. What is it called? The area of operations was weird because we had it set up as our fob, and then the beach had its own. But the actual where the lines went, that wasn't our area of operations because it was a road for because it's a random field that was set aside, and I'm pretty sure it was just some poor farmer's field that the South Korean government was that you can use this field. But so the line was actually not on our area of operations, but we could like walk with it and like to make sure no one's messing with the fuel lines. Well, while we're there, two things happened. So we set up the fob, C-wire, we had guard towers all around, and at night some of the South Korean civilians came on and like they came through our C-wire and took like half our MREs. Like, this is not even a joke.
You got invaded. We got
invaded. Yeah, we got invaded by South Koreans on our fob, and I don't know how they got through exactly, but they came through and took half our MREs, and then the next couple of weeks they're like, we have to up our security. Well, some dumbass bulk fuelers that were walking around the fuel lines and guarding them. Well, this like poor truck farmer he's just trying to like go home. And well, I forgot what they were doing on the road, but they were messing with the fuel lines, and they told him to stop. And he was like basically telling him no. And so these Marines decided to point their weapons at these like poor farmers. There's like an entire family inside this farmer and this little truck. And they like whipped that bitch in reverse and flew out of there so goddamn fast. And it turned out that they like went down to like a hotel down the road and were staying there a couple of days because they were afraid that they were going to be shot just going home to their own house.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
we didn't even have like live ammunition though, but like they didn't know that. All they saw was these 3 people in flak and Kevlar raise their rifles at them, and they're our allies. Like South Korea's our fucking ally. Like I don't those Marines got in trouble and everything, but it was just like, why would you think pointing weapons at innocent civilians when we're literally on their land illegally? Oh my God, dude, it was insane.
And that's what your motherfucking tax dollars go to.
Training.
I feel like people wouldn't voluntarily give their money to that. Just an assumption.
might create a little bit of a deficit in the budget next year. You know.
Yeah, definitely. Like the Marine Corps budget just plummets.
Oh, dude, the amount of fucking shit we break on every weekend. Oh yeah, the Marine Corps would be non-existent within a month. Be like fucking some Lance Corporal shows up with like 6 dead hookers in his car. There's a meth ring in fucking Lejeune. Like fucking bunch of other Marines trying to get on base with like 9 pounds of cocaine and a couple crossbows. Oh yeah, that shit's not getting any money.
Oh yeah, definitely not. Marines are messed up, man. I don't know how to explain Marines to people normally. All right, well, we'll try to start wrapping this up. Hey, go ahead and plug your stuff. Where do people find you at? What's the best way to get a hold of you if they have questions or something like that? Whatever you'd like to put in here.
Sure. The blog is www.crowdfundedgovernment.com. And I like to be on Twitter, but here's what I don't like. On Twitter, I don't like people agreeing with me, hey, good podcast, nice job. No, I want people coming on there and saying crowd-funded government is a stupid idea because. So at me, at crowdfundedgov, and bring me your hate, bring me your statist uncle, bring me your best argument against crowdfunded government so I can stop wasting my Sunday afternoons doing podcasts. So I can go do something.
Podcasts are fun, though.
I love it. You guys, I really appreciate it. This was a blast. I knew from listening to your episode that we were going to be, peas in the pod. This is awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, man, it was really fun. I had a great time, and your idea is really cool and really interesting, and I'm really glad we had you on.
Yeah, man. So you follow me, Jared, at JTTR. Or no way, actually, I changed my handle, so I have to re-announce that.
All right, what's your handle?
I'm trying to remember. Oh, it's at the Mongoose 0861.
God,
oh my God.
That's awesome.
I don't remember doing that last night because I was fucked up.
Well, you can find me at Keep It Real Luke on Twitter. I'm kind of like the technical guy for us. So you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. We have an Instagram. If you guys want to start following it, you can. We haven't started putting anything on it. We also have a Facebook page. I'll try to link them in the show notes so you guys can go and find those. There's not really anything on it. Basically, just uploading podcasts and things like that to the Facebook, and then we haven't done anything with the Instagram. Still trying to figure out what we're really going to do with it.
Maybe I'll remake my Instagram.
Yeah, we gotta. We'll start bringing you some dope memes or something. I don't know.
I'll build memes. I like memes.
Go ahead, Typo. Say your stuff.
All right, best for last. I'm at the real Typo.
Dude, you're like 5'5". Shut the fuck up.
You small ass bitch.
I'm 5'8", you fucking jackass.
But yeah, so if you guys, obviously, I say it at the end of every episode. All you vets out there, you ever need anybody to talk to, hit us up on either the Biting the Bullet Pod or at Biting the Bullet Pod on Twitter or any of our accounts that are linked to it. Jared's great with spicy nostalgia. I'm great with dealing with Jared's spicy nostalgia. Typo's just kind of there. But you guys can hit us up on that. If you guys have any questions, you want to get to know more about us or the podcast or how you can be on the podcast, just hit us up on Twitter. We're usually on because we have no lives.
Dude, Quincy's gonna get Quincy's definitely gonna listen to this episode, start yelling at us to be a guest again.
Oh yeah, probably.
I know, dude.
Dude, I love him though. All right, well, fucking stay frosty, Mongooses.
Yep, stay frosty. Thank you again, crowdfunded government Theodore, man. We really appreciate it. I love your idea. And we'll definitely have you on again if some stuff comes up or you get in a giant Twitter war with somebody. We'd love to see that.
You got the Mongooses on your side, brother.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, guys. See you later. Next time.
Not a militia.
Not a militia.
All right. Dude, that was awesome. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, dude, that was great.
I can't believe how good that conversation was. I always said the best one I did was the Fagcast, but this one might have been better.
Fagcast is awesome. Fagcast is awesome to be a guest on.
Oh, you guys have to. By the way, I just sat in this car for an hour in like 80-degree heat.
Oh, sorry,
jeez.
Because of all the noise outside of the all the noise out. There was like a motorcycle that went by. I was trying to cover my mic. Fuck, sorry about that.
Dude, it's all good, man. It was a fucking great.
As much as possible. But
yeah, Luke will clean it up. He's getting pretty good at it. He's our whore. He's our tech whore.
Yeah, I think we only had one drop for 20 seconds, and actually it's kind of funny how it drops out, so they could just leave it in.
Yeah. I'd probably leave it. I usually leave our fuck-ups in there anyways, so.
Nothing about us screams professional, so. You got disconnected, Typo?
Yeah, tell him I said thanks for having him on.
Typo got disconnected. He wanted to say thanks for being on, man.
Cool. Yeah, this was awesome. Hopefully you guys can. How about this? You guys mentioned that there were like these veterans who become like police officers and become like statists.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about if you get one of them on and they just want to battle you guys for a bit and then say, hey, and then sneak me in and crowdfunded government? I'm like, what's up? Let's go battle royale, baby.
All right, we'll definitely have to do something like that. That would be.
I know. In our back pocket, we have one special. I have a fucking Joe, my girlfriend's like really really close family friend. He's a Marine Corps dog handler. Became a cop in fucking Chandler, and now is ANCAP. And he's like fucking middle class guy, mid 40s, fucking old dude. Just fucking full on hardcore libertarian after being a former cop and Marine. I love him. We have great conversations.
I like that idea though. We bring some like super status guy and prior military or something like that.
Somebody we drag into a Twitter war and we're just like, hey man, come onto our podcast and talk about it.
And then just keep Theodore in the background and be like, all right, we're arguing. Well, let's drop the volunteerists down. See how you feel about that.
I love it. That could be the next introduction.
All right, sounds good, man. Well, thanks again for coming on. We'll probably get out of here. I'll start editing, and it should be up tonight. So,
yeah, man. Thanks again so much.
Cool. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, later, man. Have a good one.
I'll see you in the streets.
Oh yeah.